This is our house, which we are renovating to make our home. My name is Orion, this is Jess and Benji,
And Lilia is now 5 months old.
Since birth, we have ripped this house apart, rewired it, did some plumbing, and moved in the space of approximately a month. So if you're interested in learning how to do things around the house, DIY, renovation, all the above, then make sure you hit subscribe to follow along every single Wednesday and Sunday to see us turn this house into a home. In today's vlog, we continue working on my desk cupboard conversion, where last time we built in a false wall to close the space so I could fit my shelves on. And I tried using a router for the first time to make these edges really nice to touch, but the shelves are holding up. I've got all of my boxes up there. Unfortunately, however, it is quite difficult to get them out, but we won't talk about it. It is most certainly doing the job, which is what I wanted it for anyway. But today's agenda is to build another shelf along here, which is almost going to serve more like an extra desk space, as this shelf will be at desk height, and I'm going to be building some cleats on the wall as well as shelves tucked in here. The basic premise is when I'm working here, I don't want loads of stuff cluttering up my desk, so I'm making the ultimate desk height additional storage area for me to put things up on the cleat so I can customize what shelves I have there, as well as just built in normal shelves and a desk space that I can use to charge things, put my laptop on, all of the extra bits and bobs that don't need to go on my desk. If it doesn't all fit above this kind of height here, it's completely fine, because in the future I will be building in some drawers that go below it as well. So I'll have drawers, desk space, shelves here, cleats on the wall. It's gonna be perfect. It's also why I'm not worried about the floor looking like that or the skirting board either, because once the drawers go in there, you're never going to see it. It'll come right up to the front of this this cupboard space anyway, and it'll hide it all. And then obviously when I move out, it doesn't really matter anyway. And also, yeah, I know this is an issue. It's a damp thing that I need to fix in the attic, and then when I fix that, then I'll paint over this and fix it. But for the time being, it looks crap. It is what it is, I'm sorry. Anyways, the first task is to get the desk built in so I know where I should put shelves and cleats and stuff like that, so let's get started. The first thing I need to do is get my desktop all cut down to size, but with my measurements taken, I'll be using my circular saw with a DIY guide made out of plywood. Then I decided midway through that I wanted to actually try a mitre joint for a seamless finish, so I'm using a digital angle finder to adjust my circular saw to 45 degrees, and this time I'll be using a feather edge as my guide. As this is going to be built into a cupboard, I'm now routing out a channel for my LED strip to be hidden in. I got the measurements for this from a LED aluminium profile that I'll be inserting later on. With all of the cutting done, it just needs a light sanding down to remove any scuff marks and prepare it for varnish. Lastly, I'm going to be gluing the front fascia panel to the desk top using a combination of masking tape and clamps to hold it all together. With that all done, I'm just going to be cutting some CLS down to size, ready to hold the desk in place on the wall with some pre-drilled holes so I know where to screw into. Well, with all of my parts cut down and the desk drying currently, also lots of, is that a wasp? I'm not entirely sure, eating my desk. But as I was going to say, I finally get to showcase my workbench that I made in my very first carpentry vlog. Being used for the first time. I've got the clamp there that I've been using. I can even put on my other jigs on top of it to continue using that stuff. It kind of renders these little sawhorses a bit irrelevant, but I am incredibly happy with how this turned out. For those people who watched that video, I did actually end up adding a brace in the middle here to stop it rocking back and forth. However, there is one caveat with my workbench, and that is that it weighs an absolute ton. It is incredibly hard to move on your own. I would like to have a mount on the wall that I can just push it up to and then just fold it away, but having to stand it up and roll it, because I had to get some caster wheels on the end of it so I could roll it when it's upright, because it's just that heavy. It's a bit of a pain to get in and out, but once it's out, I love this thing. I'm so glad that I built it. But back to the task at hand. This should be dried now, so I need to take off the tape and all the clamps. As you've seen me do this many times before, I wanted to try something new for this particular like desk built-in thing. So obviously I routed out a channel for the LEDs to go at the back, and I tried a mitre joint at the front to try and get like a nice seamless look. Unfortunately, however, there are gaps in certain spots, but it's not the end of the world, as there is obviously like a doorway wall again. I've mentioned this before, but trying to get two perfect like 45-degree angles or two perfect mitre cuts to fit seamlessly together is something that I am really struggling with, and I'm trying to learn. I just think it's just the more I do it, the better I'm going to get it. Like when I notice little mistakes, like for this example, it is actually a perfect match. There's no gaps between it, but the wood has shifted slightly when I clamped it. Like maybe when I applied the clamp, it slipped on the glue a little bit, and it's not perfectly on the corner, which is why there are gaps down the end. One thing I would be really tempted to try is to do a rounded edge here, like use the router to round off this end, and I'd be interested to know what happens to this like seamless finish here. I don't know if it'll make it worse or better. I'm tempted to try it because obviously like in this corner, for example, like this, you're never going to see this because it's going to be right tucked in the corner. So I'm tempted to try it and see what happens. Alternatively, I actually have a scrap with a mitre cut. So if I actually cut this in half and glue this together, I can try on this first. That way, I don't ruin this. Unfortunately, however, as you notice, the top of my workbench is like an orangey colour. When you round off, it kind of reveals the ply, and it's a big contrast, and the same happens when you do it on a joint. So it does actually reduce the gap between the two, especially because sawdust falls in there and stuff. However, it's not the look I'm going for. The whole reason I tried this is because I wanted to get rid of the edge banding method I used on Jess's desk, which I have achieved. I've used wood filler for the time being. Whilst it dries, or when it dries, I'll sand it all down, and it should look really clean anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. I just wanted to try out something new. As I said, more practice, I could probably get those mitre cuts a little bit tighter, but if you have any suggestions or advice, then let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, this is going to seem really backwards, really odd, but that is the bottom of the desk. I'm about to put that in the desk top and balance it on these legs I've made. As from experience of doing a built-in desk, it's really difficult once it's in there to move it around. So like if I build the stud work on the walls now, I won't be able to slide the desk in and sit it on top because the sockets and stuff will get in the way because it's such a tight fit. So I'm going to kind of build it in place and hover it using it. It's going to work, I hope. This is also quite difficult to film as I'm in a tight space, but this is going in there. At least that's the plan. Okay, so we put this end in. This is such a tight fit. Okay, that one's in. Pop this in there. That worked. A treat. It's balanced a bit precariously, but it's fine. It's just there because it needs to be above the shelves I'm going to add. The cleats, the bads. I don't even know anymore. What I do know is that you will most definitely not be able to see me fitting those to the wall. So let me get that done and I'll show you when I'm finished. Okay, I may have got a little carried away. It actually took me a little longer than I anticipated to put this in because I may have made a few mistakes. We're not going to talk about it. However, I have wired in all of the lighting. It's plugged in, it goes into the desk, and then all of the wiring is housed inside here, and then it comes back out and LED strip. Then I just left my cable loose out this corner in here so I can feed it up to the next shelf that I'm going to use for lighting. I am actually really happy with how this all turned out. The only thing I would change is that the LED strip itself is just some cheap LED strip that I got off Amazon. However, I would recommend this stuff if you do want to just normal LED light like that. Because this is actually 10mm wide, which is what you need to use these connectors, like to allow you to hide cabling and stuff like that. So this I would recommend. I'll leave some links in the description below for those. But in the future, I may upgrade the LED lights themselves to what are called cob lighting, which is essentially a straight line of lights. It's not like dotted like you can see here. It's not the end of the world. I have a diffuser on it and it kind of softens it ever so slightly, but doesn't really make that much of a difference. I think I would like to upgrade later on to what's called cob lights. It looks like this. And in the future, for some of my projects, I'll probably use that. But for now, this works a treat. Now, as always, I have bitten off more than I could chew. I did expect to actually put up my French cleats today, but I'm not gonna have time to do that. So I'm gonna focus on the shelves instead. As I have tried out this new technique of a mitre joint, I really like how it all came together. The only thing I would change is if I had one clean sheet of plywood, I would actually have the grain match all the way over, so it doesn't look like two different pieces of wood that I've glued together. This is just scrap ply that I had lying around. But if I ever do it in the future, ideally I want to use the same like piece of plywood. So because I like this and I want to try it again, I'm going to make my two shelves exactly the same way, but I'm going to try and make them floating shelves. So as I don't want my shelves to be too thick, I'm making a scrap jig to rip some CLS in half using my circular saw, as I don't actually own a table saw at the moment. With my two strips of CLS ripped down, it's now time to use the mitre saw to chop them to the lengths I need to build a frame that will hold up my shelving. Now it's a case of just gluing and screwing them together, but as my rips aren't completely perfect, I'm making sure to keep the factory side on the exterior of the frame. With our frames all built and ready to use, I need to rip the shelves to the same dimensions using a 45-degree angle to ensure I get that seamless finish. All that's left to do is use some masking tape to hold it together and apply some glue. Unfortunately, as my shelves have the same depth as the CLS, I could just use some scrap to prop it and hold it in place. I somehow forgot that I still have a router on loan I needed to use to channel out my LED strips using a straight edge guide, so I get those channeled out and sanded down ready for fitting. And there we have it, two floating shelves with the channel actually cut out. Completely forgot about that. It is not turned out looking as pretty as I would have liked. I don't have a finishing blade for these like really nice cuts, so I'm getting some tear out, as you can see here, on the plywood. And because I've used a natural color filler, wood filler here, it shows a lot. But as I may have discussed in the last like desk setup video, I'm probably going to be painting a lot of the stuff in the cupboard. The paint's already come off the walls and stuff like that. It was just primed. The great thing about making floating shelves is that I can just take these off and paint them at a later date. I don't have the paint to hand right now, so I can't do a completely finished look, but in principle it works. When it's painted, you're not going to see all these like highlights and stuff, so as long as we can get it in there, fingers crossed, we should be good. Right, we're gonna need to do a little bit of math, as I want my my shelves to be exactly the same distance away from each other. So you measure from the top to the bottom. Then I minus the height of both my shelves together, which is 120 mil. And then I divide that number by 3. It's a lot of maths, but that's exactly how this works. This is also an incredibly tight fit, and I can't really film what I'm doing. So I'm gonna be using my marksman again to put some chalk marks on the wall so I can know where to screw, and I'll show you when I'm finished. Pray for me and keep your fingers crossed that this goes smoothly. I do obviously realise there's paint pinning off the wall because I'm like kind of forcing it in there. Don't worry about that. Well, that did not go as smoothly as I would have liked, but if I press this button, we have lighting. It is all done. It took a little bit of work. The walls are battered, to say the least, but I'm thinking once it's painted again and I decide on what colors I want, it should come together really nicely. I am actually really happy with the fact that it just slid on. I probably should have filmed that, but I got kind of caught. For some reason, when I do the electrics, when it comes to like the LED lighting and stuff, I get a little bit caught up and concentrate on what I'm doing, and I forget to film, so my bad. But lighting channels in, floating shelves in. The last thing to do is to add some cleats onto the wall. However, with the addition of this machine, I've potentially changed my mind. As when my desk goes here, that is actually the perfect place for it to go. It fits nicely. I can still access shelves to put things on. I might even still be able to do a couple of like French cleats along the top end of it so they're not so low. Maybe just one row of them so I can customize and hang things up. But that's a really good spot for that to be. The only downside is it does have like a fan extraction on the side, which means I would have to find a way to pipe that out. Which I'm very tempted to like pipe it straight up into the attic and then find some like extraction point up there. And then when I want to hook it up, I just connect the tube to, I don't know, it'd probably be like a waste pipe or something that goes up into the attic. It's tempting. Let me know what you think in the comments down below of whether that should go there and I should go to try and do that. It's a lot of work to stick a hole in the ceiling. Like it's going to obviously be quite big for the, like I say, the exhaust, the extraction pipe that's going to come out of this. But it means the pipe's there ready. If I want to use it, I could actually build a shelf for it even further down underneath, and I can just pull it out and pop it up there if I want to use it, and then I'll just hook it up to the extraction. It's an idea. It's already serving a purpose, which is nice. But we are one step closer to getting our little desk cubby hole all finished with some shelves all done now. I really still do want like a big drawer here because it's something for me to build. However, that's going to cost quite a bit of materials to do that, and I'm waiting for my router to arrive before I attempt to try building something like that. For the time being, I think potentially in the next episode or the next time we do this, I'm probably going to still put French cleats up there because I want to try that and see how it looks and feels when I have it in the place. This is the perfect place to try it, as I said before. And after I've finished doing that, I may very well move my desk in here because there's no real reason for me to hold back now other than painting it. But I don't know when I'm going to get paint, and I feel like I'd need to sit here and use it before I kind of have an idea or a vision of what I want it to look like. Because I did consider adding like these, I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head, but on this wall here is like a bit of a feature as well. So yeah, lots of ideas. If you have any, let me know in the comments down below what you think, because I'm open to figuring out what to do next. The functionality, however, is spot on. It's exactly how I want. The only thing I might do is add some lighting onto this shelf. So I might remove one of these shelves and add a strip of LED that goes across there, just so I have some top-down lighting, as it is like a very cozy space. Obviously, even if I put the white lights on, because it's not the brightest LED in the world, it's still fairly dark in there. Not that I'm ever going to really sit in there and see or look at stuff, so I don't know, we'll see. But anyways, that is going to do it for today. It feels like a really long video. It's been probably more stressful than my usual stuff because, as I always try to do something new or different that I've not done before, like I haven't just whacked in a shelf there. I've tried to do mitre joints and a floating shelf, and I have to wrap my brain around it while figuring out filming and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I try to do the like kind of music and me commentate over what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. If you like that format, then leave this video a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. And I'm still like playing around with how I do things on here. But if you're new to my channel, hit subscribe. As always, a big shout out to the guys over on Patreon who are supporting and get little teasers of this stuff. They even get vlogs early with no ads. So if you're someone who wants to join the Patreon, then scan the QR code that you can see on screen. But anyways, it's been Orion. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace, peace, much love. Bye-bye. That's the I can tell you. Alternatively, as from experience of trying to do a built-in cupboard, or like built-in... Oh, I've just realised something. Crap.